Now Hear This is a music review podcast and is not directly affiliated with any artists or album projects discussed on the show. Think of us like your record collection come to life. Well, except for some of those Paul Anka records. Sorry, Paul, we're not having your baby.
You got a record of your favorite songs. You got an hour and it won't take long. You got a pair of brand new friends. You got a ticket, gonna stick to the end. I said now hear this. Now hear this. Now hear this show right now.
I think a lot of times there's double standards for women. We've been conditioned to be homemakers, and it's important, no matter what gender you are, to make yourself happy.
When I rolled out of town on the unpaved road, I was $57 from being broke. Kissed my mama and my sisters, and I said goodbye. And with my suitcase packed, I wiped the tears from my eyes.
We're sent here, we're made to feel pain.
Times they were tough. Growing up at home, my daddy lost the farm when I was 2 years old. Took a job at the prison, working second shift, and that's the last time I'll let them taste.
Singing about going to jail and drinking too much, and just how that is perceived as being a woman and maybe not being ladylike.
Cause all I wanna do is make a little cash. Cause I've worked all the bad jobs and busted my ass. I wanna buy back the farm and bring my mama home some wine and turn back the clock on the cruel hands of time.
Welcome back to Now Hear This.
Welcome back.
You've returned. This is our, what is this? 5th episode?
Number 5.
If you've stuck with us this long, you know. Well, should we introduce ourselves? I guess this is really sloppy. This is a sloppy intro.
This is a great intro. My name is Paul Kaminsky, and no, wait, I'm Ryan. Oh, dang it!
Ah, beans! Old Gil screwed it up again.
The Simpsons are great. Check The Simpsons out. I'm Ryan Brady.
Yeah, here's a plug for the beloved family program, The Simpsons.
There's a little indie cartoon we're trying to help out right now.
Yeah. I am Paul Kaminsky telling you not to have a cow. This literally has nothing to do with this episode. There's nothing to do with it at all.
Not even close to having anything to do with it.
Yeah. I'll keep some of this in, I imagine. But anyway, if you stuck with us this long, you know that Ryan and I exchange albums here on the podcast every episode.
Every episode, yeah.
Every single episode. And so when Ryan gives me an album, it's one I perhaps haven't listened to, or at the very least am unfamiliar with to a large degree, and vice versa for Ryan. And
yes,
so far I've picked a lot of sassy women, and Ryan's picked a lot of sad guys.
Our internal character comes out.
I'm going to break that, I swear to God. But this episode is no different, and the tradition lives on as we are today discussing Margo Price's debut solo record, Midwest Farmer's Daughter.
Oh, yes. Well, so I thought Midwest Farmer's Daughter, I think, was this a Beach Boys reference? And then I turn this thing on, and it's fiddles and slide guitars, and I'm like, oh, son of a bee. Because I'm not the biggest country Western music fan. As you know, I keep turning in sad boy records from middle-aged men. So, but you know what? Halfway through this record that I thought I was going to be just a nightmare and a miserable experience, I fell in love.
Did you?
Spoiler alert. There's not a song on this record I don't like.
Wow. That is high praise.
Yeah.
Upon my first listen to this record, I was in a very similar boat. I am not a country guy. I don't really like country at all. But this album, under the guise of like rock and roll honky tonk,
Right. Yeah.
led me by the hand through the door into, oh, this is what country can be. Mm-hmm. My common frame of reference is rock and roll, and so Margo has a lot of rock and roll in her sound, and it's actually more, and we'll get into this, but it's more akin to like a Neil Young-y sort of,
Yes.
Willie Nelson, but Willie's maybe more in the country side of things. It's got a lot of that. I guess Neil Young would be the closest comparison. Allman Brothers, maybe, that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Where there's enough crossover where I'm like, oh, just to give a little background as to how I got into her, if I may shamelessly plug for a moment, longtime listeners of my other program, the Third Men podcast, know that I'm a big Jack White fan. And Margo Price came into my periphery because of Third Man Records, which is Jack's record company.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I was resistant at first, dismissed it at first. And then on an off chance, I was just at Amoeba one day and I saw the CD and it was discounted, and I'm a big like physical media person, so I was just like, okay, fine. And so I picked it up just on a whatever kind of whim. Mm-hmm. And I spent the afternoon riding around in my car listening to this thing, and I was blown away. It found something in me and touched it, and it awakened an interest I didn't realize I had.
I'm right with you on that. Same sort of thing. I haven't explored this any further. I love Dolly Parton. There are a lot of, even Carly Simon. There are a lot of female singers I do really love. I actually really love Ariana Grande, believe it or not.
It's fine.
I think that Seven Rings song is one of the best songs ever. I don't know if I find myself really investigating the careers of female singers as much as I have men singers or just bands in general. Shame on me. This is one of these artists where I'm going to go listen to everything she's done. And you sent me a couple things just in the past, 24, 48 hours. I'm like, wow, all of this is great. Her music videos are funny. She's charming. She has this whole she has her middle finger up to the whole music business, at least the Nashville music business, it sounds like.
Right. Yeah, that's what charmed me too, and we'll get into some of that. Well, why don't we do a little bit of a bio on her, and then we'll get into the record and her attitude and stuff. But the reason why I do want to do this little slightly deeper dive into the bio is because part of her appeal is her story. And the first track, which again we'll get into, is kind of a microcosm of the story I'm about to tell you. So we'll just touch base on that here. So Margo was born in April 1983 in Buffalo Prairie, Illinois.
Don't know where that is, and I'm from Illinois.
She grew up on a family farm, and they farmed soybeans and cattle. And her family was forced to sell that farm due to the farming depression, I guess you'd call it, of the early 80s, that whole farm aid thing,
Yeah.
And it was a combo of harsh banking practices and drought that drove them out of business and made them sell the farm. Margo's quoted as saying, "It took the wind out of the whole family. We were still surrounded by cornfields and cattle, and it was really hard for my parents, to cope." Part of the way that she and her family coped with it was with music, and she sang and played piano in her church choir.
Right.
So she's about our age. She's a couple years older than us, to give you a frame of reference here. She's born in 83. So she's, right now she's in her mid-30s. So she was coming up at the time we were. So you can kind of imagine the time periods we're talking about here. Mm-hmm. She went to college, but dropped out in 2003 at the age of 20. She actually went to college to study dance, but she decided to just completely leave her entire old life behind and move to Nashville.
Wow.
Inspired by a great uncle of hers named Bobby Fischer.
Not the chessman.
Is that a chess man?
Yeah, Bobby Fischer. That's the chess guy. The guy who would trick all the people with his psychological tactics. He's amazing. But we're way off. No, okay, keep going.
No, maybe she was inspired by Bobby Fischer. I think I'm
yeah.
inspired by Bobby Fischer.
I think about that at least once a month, Bobby Fischer. Really, I do.
Do you really?
No, I don't. I'm just straight up lying to you. He's mentioned in a lot of books on. There's a whole chapter about him in that 48 Laws of Power book. I'll send you that on the side. This is not for everybody listening.
Yeah, Ryan's got some literature for all of us to read. There's some radical opinions in there, let me tell you this.
Radical is exactly how I describe it also.
In the 90s way. We will get back to your radicalization in a moment, but...
Thank you.
Inspired by Bobby Fischer. Now, this guy's interesting. So he left his entire old life behind.
Yeah.
and moved to Nashville himself and toiled away on Music Row for like 20 years.
Whoa.
Until he finally was able to sell some of his songs to artists like George Jones, Conway Twitty, and Reba McEntire.
Wow, 20 years. It's a long time.
So anyway, the career record for him, he puts it, career maker record, was a song called You Lie from Reba McEntire, which spent 5 months on the country charts. Now, I did track this song down and listen to it, and I do not like Reba I don't know if it's my kind of country.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
I do. I actually do.
She has a delightful TV show from what I understand. So, I don't know.
And she was in one of the first Tremors movie? Is that her, Reba McEntire? I'm almost positive.
God, are you? Wow. You're blowing my mind right now.
Yeah, she's married to the guy with the bunker and the guns. Bert, maybe is his name?
The head trimmer.
6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon and I did it for you today.
Fred Ward is my personal hero, I think.
I'm looking this up now. Tremors. You've seen this movie, right?
I love Tremors. I've seen Tremors 1, 2, 3, and that's where I stop.
Yeah, you should stop at 3. Yeah, Reba McEntire is Heather Gummer, the wife to Burt Gummer, played by legendary actor Michael Gross.
I am watching Tremors tonight.
Yes.
I'm watching it tonight. So, speaking of personal influences, so some of Margo, this is what Margo had to say about her personal influences. So she's in Nashville now. She's left her old life behind. She's trying to make it. And this is her talking later about her influences. She says, a lot of times people say I sound like Loretta Lynn or Tammy Wynette, but I feel kind of like the men. I'm like David Allan Coe. I've been to prison, man. I think that's what separated me from Casey Musgraves and stuff like that. There's not a lot of glitter or girly bows and stuff. So throwing a little shade at Casey Musgraves, I'm really unfamiliar other than the idea that she is very popular in country circles, which again, I am not running in any country circles.
No, me neither. At least I don't think I am, but I'm pretty sure I'm not.
I love so much of the music from the 60s and 70s and, look up a lot to Loretta Lynn and Patsy Cline and Kitty Wells, and the list goes on.
So she described Nashville as a tough place to be discovered, and she actually wound up meeting up with her old great Uncle Bobby, and this is a great little story. She says, I went over one time and played him a song I was proud of. He just sat there quiet after I finished. Then he looked at me right in the eyes and said, here's what you do. Go home, get rid of your TV, get rid of your computer, turn the radio off, and write. And that was his way of saying, you're not there yet, but keep trying. It really hurt my feelings at first because so many people nowadays are afraid to be honest, but that was great. It really lit a fire under my ass. So old Uncle Bobby was nonplussed, but gave her some advice, which is to keep at it.
Good advice.
I mean, that's all it is, really. I mean, it's just keeping at it long enough, right?
Yeah, just about anything in this life, I think. Just consistency and persistence. Yeah, but that is really good advice. No joke.
Yeah. So to make ends meet, she waited tables. She sold suits at the mall. She waited tables at TGI Fridays. She's tended bar at a place called Flying Saucers, where she was made to wear skimpy Catholic schoolgirl outfits, which she would later describe as a little demeaning. She worked in construction, installing and removing residential siding. She played Gretel in local children's theater and then started teaching dance to kids at the YMCA using some of the skills she picked up at college. So she's hustling, Ryan. She's hustling.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
Mega big time.
So then she met her husband-to-be, Jeremy Ivy, or Jivey as they call him, and he was a country singer who was also ensconced in the Nashville scene, and then they formed a band called Buffalo Clover. Now, those are the tracks I played you last night, Buffalo Clover.
Yeah, those are great ones, yeah.
Yeah, they're a little more rocking. They're a little more like, I don't know, I described them to you in email as 73 Ringo Starr.
Yes. That's what they sound like. Yeah.
Some pop rock records. So they would release 3 albums and an EP together, and then some of their members would join her band later, the Price Tags, but previous members include the now famous Sturgill Simpson.
Oh yeah, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and somebody named Kenny Vaughn, who was, I guess, a guitarist for the Marty Stewart band. Marty Stewart's band. I don't know who that is.
No, I don't know.
But this is the other thing. While she was in Buffalo Clover, she befriended Brittany Howard, who was about to blow up in Alabama Shakes.
Damn.
And her and Brittany became good friends, and Brittany actually guests on all these Buffalo Clover records. And so just talking about her sound real quick, it says, I kind of went more the folk direction for a while, and I always thought I wanted to write songs that had substance. And so I very much loved Joni Mitchell and Bob Dylan and Neil Young and really gravitated towards that. And then the Kinks. I got very interested in the Kinks for a while and started playing rock and roll. I did that for quite some time, and I had a soul band that had like 3 backup singers and a horn section. Before I knew it, I was singing over, 14 people and kind of wondered if I had gotten too much. Had this Joe Cocker thing going on, which I don't mind.
No, I don't mind it at all. But so this configuration now is none of Buffalo Clover? Not even, do you know?
Yeah, so her current band has the drummer from Buffalo Clover, a guy named Dylan Napier.
Yeah.
And Jeremy Ivy, who's her husband, Jivey.
Oh, okay. That all makes sense now.
Yeah, so her husband used to sing in Buffalo Clover every now and again. I'm not the biggest fan of his voice. I don't know. I kind of check out when his songs come on, and the Margo ones really do stand out and sort of shine in that band.
Isn't that so funny? Somebody's voice can just change whether or not you want to listen to a song.
Yeah.
Like Burt, you ever heard Burt Bacharach sing one of his songs? It's like, oh, snooze. But then somebody else does, and you're like, whoa, that's a good song.
I've never done the Burt trip, and I have a feeling we're probably going to do the Burt trip at some point on this show.
Probably. There is one record of his I really like. Does he count as a sad man, though? He's more of like a...
Yes.
You think so?
I knowing nothing. I know as much about Burt Bacharach now as I did about Randy Newman before you blew my mind.
Uh-oh. This is what they call in the business foreshadowing.
Whew. I'm getting vapors. A chill actually ran down the nape of my neck.
Get a priest in here. We got a guy with the vapors.
You're touching the nape. So everything sounds like it's going kind of okay, but they're sort of toiling away, and this is where things go really bad. Buffalo Clover broke up around this time. Her and her husband, Jivey, sold their possessions for $3,000 and drove west, playing bars along the way. And they lived in a Winnebago and just kind of hit the road.
Right.
Just completely disillusioned with Nashville after that experience. She told Charlie Rose the story, and she said, I had a very bad experience with an older gentleman who had a studio and wanted me to write some demos for him for more the pop country world, and we spoke a little bit about it. I was writing them with him and another guy, and I went to the restroom, and when I came out, I was having a glass of sangria and I began to not feel well. I asked them if they put anything in my drink, and they said, don't worry, we just put vodka in there because we thought you weren't having enough fun. And,
oh boy.
Yeah, and that immediately set off alarms in her head, and her mother's words were sort of like ringing in her ear, get out of there. And so she was able to get out of there unharmed, but this completely disillusioned her toward the entire music business, basically. And then it gets worse. In 2010, 2 weeks after he was born, her son Ezra died of a rare heart condition.
My goodness.
Yeah. And Margo said of that took me out of the game for a while. There were times when I felt terrible. All I wanted to do was drink and forget. I denounced God. I was angry. Why would anyone do this to a person? She drank and self-medicated and considered checking into a mental institution at one point. And during a night of really, really hard drinking, a cab failed to show up and she got behind the wheel of her car. She was pulled over and spent the weekend in jail. And so this was kind of a wake-up call for her, this jail experience, and so she resolved to sober up and start recording an album that was hers, not Buffalo Clover's. And so they went into the studio, and they didn't initially have money to go into the studio, and so the impetus to do that was she was at a club in Nashville, and somebody from Rolling Stone was there, and they asked to hear her album. And she says, well, I don't have one. Wow. And so she wound up selling her car and pawning her wedding ring to buy studio time.
Damn.
And they recorded Midwest Farmer's Daughter at the original Sun Studio in Memphis, Tennessee.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Working at night because the place was packed with tourists during the day. And if it wasn't for Alabama Shake's Brittany Howard, the album might not have actually come out because she sold Howard her vintage reel-to-reel equipment to help pay for the studio time. It was a reel-to-reel, the wedding ring, some instruments in the car, all got pawned off to finish Midwest Farmer's Daughter. So she was all in, like she just took every dollar she had or any piece of equity she had and dumped it into this project on the like last hope that it would happen for her.
Wow, that is, yeah, I can't even believe. You can hear that all in the record. You can hear.
Oh, yeah.
Because the record makes you feel alive. And if she's dumping all of her possessions and selling her wedding ring and she was drugged in Nashville and her child died, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
I mean, pain makes for some of the best music. I mean,
right. Yeah, it's true.
My favorite George Harrison record is Dark Horse because it's so like he was in a kind of an awful state and doing a lot of drugs, and his wife ran off with Eric Clapton and Ronnie Wood.
Apparently.
Yeah, and I don't know. I find it to be great for us as a listener and just awful for the people going through it. You know?
Well, yeah. I mean, also George, didn't he steal Ringo's wife, Maureen, for a bit?
Yeah,
they were all kind of playing around.
Yeah. So the bad times didn't necessarily end after this album was finished. So as I mentioned, she went back to Nashville with this fire and fervor. She shopped it around to 30 different record labels, all of which turned it down.
But yeah.
30.
Also happens.
30 labels turned her down.
Well, as a person that works at a record label and has worked, don't sign to a record label if you don't have to. Seriously. They're just going to take all your money.
Wow. There's some insight for you.
But if I told you that you should sign to the label, then you definitely should.
Again, some very, very controversial literature coming your way from Ryan Brady.
They call it a manifesto.
Yeah.
Might be in a pamphlet form. Be available in bathroom stalls and telephone poles.
Yeah. So that's where Jack White comes in. Not the bathroom stalls and telephone poles, but that's where Jack comes in, and Jack's Third Man Records. So Margo through the Nashville scene, got to know some people who knew Jack and knew Third Man, who are based out of Nashville. And they got a meeting at Nashville, and this is a hilarious and very Jack White story. So she contacted White, and at a meeting at Third Man Records, she was handed a guitar and played a song she had recently written about life on the road called Desperate and Depressed.
Oh, yeah, I like that one.
I'm pissed off at the number of people that I meet who go to shake my hand with a viper up their sleeve. They freeze me out in the winter, burn me up all summer, try to take my money when I'm desperate and depressed. Ain't it a mess? I played for free and paid for the miles on my truck.
Jack wasn't in the room, but he was listening from the next room. And Margo was saying, to quote, he just wanted to make sure I could sing in tune.
Wow.
And after hearing that song and talking to her at that point, he agreed to put out the label's first country record. So this was a risk for Jack, too. And, he took a gamble on it. She took a gamble with them. Like, everyone was gambling away their entire lives on this stuff.
Seriously, yeah. It sounds like it.
Yeah, and she says, I don't know if it would have even come out, but we put all our chips on the record. And that leads us, Ryan, to Midwest Farmer's Daughter, released on March 25th, 2016, recorded in 3 days at Sun Studio in Nashville, Tennessee.
3 days?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've got a couple overall bullet points on this one. Do you want to hear those, Ryan? What am I calling this? Paul's Bullet Corner? I forget.
Paul's Corner, Paul's Bullet Corner. I think we called it something last time.
We've got to get this thing a better name. I'm telling you.
Good morning. I'm going to be your instructor. Okay, I know you're anxious to jump right in.
Paul's Fast Facts. Paul's Fast Five.
Coming at you. Pete coming at you. Pete coming at you.
Pete coming at you. Yeah, that'll do it.
All right. So this week's Pee in Your Face is, I have, four bullet points here. The first one. A toke and a smoke and a honk and a tonk and a bump and a shot for your trouble.
Do you have more bullet points after that? I think you got the whole record, but please keep going.
country jam for he who hates country jam.
Guilty
Yeah.
is charged.
A pleasant ass kicking from the Declaration of Independence and your mama. And last one here, Whiskey and Pathos.
Whiskey and Pathos should be her next record title.
And that's been Paul's gonna pee in your face. What are we calling this? Paul's Bullet.
Oh, God.
Paul's Bullet Man.
Reader's Digest, the Spark Notes. Does Spark Notes still exist? Remember those?
I haven't thought about Spark Notes in 15 years.
What were the yellow ones? It's not a Spark Note. Or was that the Spark Note?
Well, that was Cliff Notes.
Cliff Notes were the yellow ones.
The
But none
Cliff
of that
Notes.
works. We have to
No.
come back to that. But I do
Okay.
love your bullet points. They are
Thank you.
hilarious every time.
So let's get into the record, Ryan. It starts off with basically the story I just told you in the song Hands of Time. And this song is essentially just everything that happened to her up to this point. Like she just lays it all on the table.
Well, yeah. Knowing what you just said for the last, 10, 20 minutes, it changes the whole record for me now. Because I thought this is one of those records. Because when we do these, I really try to I do a little bit of research, but I come to the table having listened to the record and given my reaction to it.
Yeah.
This sounds so good, this album. All the playing is so excellent. The lyrics are so well done. I thought that they spent 3 months in the studio. It was 3 days.
3 days.
And then I just thought she was a good storyteller. No. These are just the inner workings of her mind and her getting all of this horrible pain out.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Almost every song goes back to the story I just told you in one way or the other. It's basically her journey, like this album, which is interesting because what do you do after that? Not that we're about to talk about that, but like, what do you do after you've told your whole story? And so seeing her output after this record has been fascinating because it's similar to, and you have experience with hip hop, it's similar to, I feel like rappers, once they get a little bit of money, start rapping about how the money's been bringing them problems or causing grief or whatever. So, or fame has changed their lives, Eminem with the Stan stuff and all that. It's been interesting watching her trajectory reacting to fame. And that's been the subject matter after this. So this record is her. It's her heart and her soul, and everything else has been like what happened to her after she showed her heart and soul to the world.
I want to buy back the farm and bring my mama home some wine and turn back the clock on the cruel hands of time.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah. A little background on this song. Third Man put out this track as I don't know, you call it a lyric video now, but at the time of its release, I feel like we weren't really doing lyric videos as a nation yet.
As the United States.
But it was just literally just a clock on the table ticking. And it was the song, and that was how they promoted the record in the lead up to its release. And I had listened to it, but I didn't really kind of get it. It's funny, Margo said, this is a 6-minute song, and everyone kept trying to make it my single, and I don't know if America has 6 minutes of attention span.
Good point. She's very smart.
Yeah, totally. And that her wit is part of what got me through the first listen, because I really respond when somebody is being subversive or there's double meaning or some kind of biting wit to the lyric. And this record is actually full of that stuff. And you can take it at face value if you want, but underneath that face value is this really smart person who's thinking through what she's saying.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Absolutely. She is.
This track has like a lot of soaring voice and strings. I think it's probably her finest song, just for me personally. I don't know if it gets much better than this just for her on a songwriting level. There's also a little keyboard like organ thing that was like used a lot in the 90s. I don't even know what that is. It sounds like a little like Billy Preston-y funk on there.
Yeah, I'd have to listen back to it. But is it an organ? More of an organ sound?
It sounds like an electric organ, like
yeah,
like something like a setting on a keyboard or something.
Well, if it's Nashville, it probably was like a Whirly or a Rhodes or something like that.
I'm unfamiliar with any organ, but I was going to say but my own, but this is a family podcast.
Hold on, I'm going to listen to it right now. I'm going to tell you exactly what it is. Do you know where it is in the song?
I would say about 4 minutes in, something like that.
What a good song. Yeah, it almost sounds like a mellotron or something because it's got strings, but it has that tape effect. I'm not sure. I think you're right. It's maybe a keyboard patch, but it does sound very, very 90s.
Yeah, very 90s. I love the strings on this. There's like in the final verse, it's got a little George Martin-y, like a little like kind of groove they're getting out of the strings there. And I don't know where they got these strings from. I don't know if that was keyboard stuff too. It sounds like actual strings. I guess it's Memphis. They're recording in Memphis, so it's probably not too hard to find strings in Memphis. But
strings just laying everywhere in Memphis.
So the last thing I'll say about this song is that when asked if she would buy back the farm, she said, "I'd love to buy back the farm for my parents, but I don't know if they have any interest in farming at this point. My father's retired after working his whole life in prison, and they're getting older." So it's kind of a sad little note to end on.
Yeah, it's a sad tune, but it's effective because of it.
Yeah. So anyway, that brings us to track 2, About to Find Out.
My note on this, I had 2 notes, clearly about Trump and George Harrison E.
Ooh. I totally wrote George stuff in this one. I wrote, "This is Margo at her fuck you best, a nasty little number in the vein of Piggies."
Yeah, it's got a George Harrison sort of situation, even in the guitar tone.
Yeah, that's so funny. We both zeroed in on that because I had never even thought about that before. I was like listening to last night and writing a couple little last things here. This is one of them kick in the door like follow-up tracks to that sort of sad sweeping melody in the first one. I love the line, "You blow so much smoke it's bound to make you choke. I see the snakes in both of your eyes."
Yes, that's a really great line.
Yeah, it's just really nasty.
You wouldn't know class if it bit you in the ass. That's why I was like, oh, it's clearly about Trump. Because I was like, it's classy.
Yeah.
It's going to be the classiest time.
Yeah.
We're having a great time in Memphis. We're going to be walking in Memphis. There's going to be a lot of ghosts, but they're not going to get... Where am I going with this?
Well, she famously dislikes Donald Trump. We'll get into her politics a little bit when we get into the next song, but this was written and recorded around the campaign of 2016, so I guess it's conceivable. I have a quote from her. She said, "I wrote this about an acquaintance who's a bit of a sociopath. It's funny how songs change meaning over time. It seemed to be fitting for the privileged and the separation in the classes that we're dealing with today." So you actually kind of hit the nail on the head. She started it about this person she knew, and it morphed into this political thing.
Oh, that's interesting. So about a friend of hers that's a sociopath.
Yeah.
But then I clearly read it as the president. So, all right, fair enough.
But as she says, it changed meanings to fit that broader political spectrum.
Yeah.
Another line I like from this one. "Tell me, what does your pride taste like, honey? Well, haven't you tried it out? It's better than the taste of a boot in your face without any shadow of doubt."
Don't disagree.
I know.
I can't disagree with that.
I know. So that leads us to track number 3, Tennessee Song.
I love the drums at the beginning. Ooh, you're just pulled in right away. There's a little distortion on them. Take me back to Tennessee. Woo.
Yeah.
It's great.
So this one, if you take it at face value, is the exact opposite of what I like about Margo Price. Because this one,
okay,
when you hear this, you're like, at least I was thinking like, oh, God, a Tennessee Pride song. Awesome. Like, it almost felt like pastiche at a certain point, or like a Leonard Skinner kind of knockoff or something. But it's not pride in the people. It's literally pride in the land. She did an Austin City Limits performance that was, I think, the night after the election where Trump won.
Okay. And
she introduced this song and saying, "This is an ode to the land, but not necessarily the way of thinking."
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got all sorts of associations with state names at the point here now. I like to not affiliate this next state song with a color, maybe just besides the color green. It's written about a place that I do love, and about the beauty of the outdoors. Maybe not the way of thinking.
So she is an ultra-liberal, liberationist, feminist for sure, raunchy activist in an industry that is so tied to the good old boy mentality. Mm-hmm. Which is why her and Neil Young make a lot of sense as a one-to-one.
Yeah.
And because of that, she was and is still struggling to find a place in the country world, because the country world is so rooted in conservatism to an extent, I would say. That's a broad generalization, but at least I'd say that's fair, at least a little bit.
It's definitely fair.
Yeah, so this is one of those songs where, if you didn't think too hard about it, you'd think it was maybe an ode to that good old boy mentality, but it's actually literally an ode to the land itself. And she actually talks about how I forget what Native American tribe she references in this, but
the Lakota people.
Right, the Lakota.
Which I believe are a confederation of the Sioux tribes.
Okay.
In the Great Plains. It's like Montana, Wyoming, South Dakota, North Dakota, Nebraska.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily where they were. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not much of a historian when it comes to that stuff, but there were a lot of lines in these lyrics that I thought were interesting. Did you notice the 65 or 40 west line?
I did.
The I-65, it enters Tennessee from Alabama, and then the I-40 comes from Arkansas at Memphis and runs through Nashville. So she's saying, like, I don't know which suits you best, which road to get back to Tennessee.
Okay.
So, a lot of clever lyrics is my point to this rambling little bit I've done here.
I always assumed that's what it was and never looked it up. I-65 definitely being my favorite electronica band of the late 90s. I Was Also Blue. Dabba Dee.
Dabba Die, yeah.
Is that racist? What did I just say?
I think that you said entertainment is what you said.
Okay. All right, so that brings us, let's move on to track number 4 here. Since You Put Me Down.
Oh, I got one more thing. The future ain't what it used to be. That's an old Yogi Berra line.
Is it really?
Not Yogi the Bear. Yogi Berra, the...
No, I know that, yeah.
The baseballman from the Yankees. He had all those hilarious phrases. My point, again, is that she is just so smart. She's pulling from all sorts of places and putting them into songs. And your point to, okay, well, this is going to be one of those straight-ahead songs about Tennessee, and it's really not.
No, not at all.
It's much deeper than that.
Future ain't what it used to be. Let's go back to Tennessee. Mount high and down low. Let's build down where the waters flow. Dig a well.
She makes references to other artists that I admire in a lot of her songs. There's a song called A Little Pain from her next album. I sent you the video of that one last night, and in that one she said, like Levon said, I ain't in it for my health. And of course Levon Helm is all of our favorite, so she's pulling from a lot of different places.
Definitely.
Let's talk about Since You Put Me Down. Now this is the one, when I was listening to this record for the first time, that flipped the switch in my brain, and I was like,
same.
Okay, I like this. She says the line, I killed the angel on my shoulder with a fifth of Evan Williams.
Fifth of Evan Williams.
And for those of you who aren't big drinkers out there, Evan Williams is kind of garbage whiskey, which is, I have Evan Williams all the time because I don't spring for the good stuff. And it just hit me on this like personal level. I felt like the song pierced my soul for a minute,
right?
Because I've done that. I've tried to kill the angel on my shoulder with a fifth of Evan Williams before, and so it's so relatable. Even though I've had none of these experiences that she has, she makes me feel like I had her experiences through the power of her lyric and through the strength of her melody.
Agreed. And then she follows that up in that same lyrical line. I've been trying to turn this broken heart to stone.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. And who hasn't tried to do that?
I couldn't name a person.
In the song, she describes herself as an outcast and a stray, which I always felt was super endearing because, it's sort of like, oh, Margo, you could come stay. Come on. Well, I'll bring you in. You can come stay on my couch, like that. But that's the way she feels. She felt cast out literally from Nashville at that time in her life. She felt like a stray. She was just a rambling, like much like the
right.
Delta bluesman. Like she was like literally a rambling musician in a Winnebago.
Seriously, yeah. Every time you say Winnebago, I think of Spaceballs. I had to just get that off my chest.
Okay. I think of the Muppet Family Christmas when it was cold outside enough to freeze your Winnebago. So we both have issues to work out.
We definitely do. I mean, outside of the Winnebago thing. You mean generally,
Yeah,
right?
just generally. She co-wrote this one with her husband, Jivey, I think Tennessee Song as well. And she said that Jivey had started writing it. He maybe had a different direction that he was going, but I definitely used that song to write a scorned love letter to an old manager that did me wrong. People think it's about love. So this is about that guy.
Oh, boy.
The last line I want to just point out from this is, all the vampires at the bar won't ever get too far. They're just sucking all the good blood out of this town.
I was going to bring this line up, too, because it's like the Tom Petty, the vampires he's talking about in Free Fallin'.
Yeah. Now, she's a huge Tom Petty fan.
Well, there you go.
And she actually changed on her second record in the song All American Made. That's a song about how the world is fucked. In the original version, I think I don't remember who she cries out to like pray for the world, but she changed it to Tom Petty in the officially released version, which is really cool. Yeah, so she's a big Petty fan. Speaking of her influences, that brings us to track number 5, 4 Years of Chances.
Excellent.
Yeah, so this is a funk tune.
I was going to say, is this a disco song? How did this end up on this record?
She pulls from a lot of different places, and just to give you some background, I saw this tour. I saw her at the Troubadour touring this album, which was awesome because Troubadour is a nice little club, and I was on the amp watching her. Her band covers a Meters song in that. I don't know if you're familiar with the Meters, but
Yeah.
They clearly like play funk tunes. Like they clearly don't just stick to country western stuff, you know?
Country band that can play the Meters.
She pulls from a lot of places, like we keep saying.
Yeah.
She's definitely, she's woke, as they say. Isn't that something kids say now?
Kids do say that.
They're woke. I don't know what it means, but I think it applies to this.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was a big, like, Ambien epidemic when we were in college. So I think those people are just waking up now. Is that what?
There was that Ambien thing. People were, like, paralyzing themselves with Ambien.
I mean, I knew a person in college who showed up at my door one time without any pants on and a big woolly winter coat.
Oh, boy.
And that just had Ambien written all up and down his ass.
Yo, you all right, man? You okay, dude? What? I'm asleep. Okay.
So 4 Years of Chances was influenced by two things. This is her talking here. Of course, by relationships and by the guys who had treated me bad, but also by a conversation I had with a friend of mine when we were both drunk and sitting on the porch. She said, I gave that motherfucker 4 years of chances, and I thought that's a great line, and I'm going to steal it for a song. So that same night that she was, I'm pretty sure she told this story, and I could be conflating some things, but I believe that's the same night that she got pulled over for drunk driving and thrown in jail.
Wow.
She had that conversation. And at the Troubadour show, the friend who had told her that line was in the audience.
That's great.
Yeah, that was also about how she was breaking up with her band, Buffalo Clover, and she was talking a little bit about how Buffalo Clover felt like a relationship, and so boyfriends, girlfriends, her friend's story, Buffalo Clover, all of it rolled up into this song, and it turned into a metaphor for just endings in general. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of great playing on this one.
Well, yeah, the fuzzy bass and the drums in that first bit are great.
Yeah.
There's actually musicians on this record, and that's not something you see all the time anymore.
Yeah. So that brings us to track number 6. This Town Gets Around. The countryest little piece of honk on the record, I think.
Yes. It's not who you know, but it's who you blow that'll get you in the show. What a line.
You can tell she's been around.
She's seen a few things, yeah.
Yeah. She told The Independent about this song, "In this world, there's more crooked people than honest people, and I've been screwed over by men and a couple of women too in the music business. A weird thing happens, and it's not only in the music business, where people exchange sexual favors to advance their career, and I've seen people sleep their way to the top, and people have tried to proposition me in those ways too. It felt good to write about it in This Town Gets Around. I was mad and I wanted to write a song." Now, this is all written and recorded and all that stuff before the Me Too movement and all this stuff, but she's singing about this shit, you know?
Yeah, she doesn't care. She doesn't give a fuck.
Nope.
Maybe I'd be smarter if I played dumb.
Yeah.
Very good. I thought that this is just how Hollywood is, and apparently not, you know? I've always, you hear about the casting couch or other forms of that these days, and it's good to know that most of society is screwed up in the same way, I guess. Consistency is nice every once and again.
There's a comfort in the order of the universe being awful, I guess.
Yes. That sangria story, I've been just thinking about that since you said it earlier. It's like, ugh.
I know.
And because the whole last verse in this song about the manager that could be as old as her dad or whatever. It's, ugh.
This one's clearly about that. Took me out for drinks and talked to sweet talk. He said, "Darling, sign on the dotted line, kiss my cheek and drink this wine. And if you don't like it, you can just walk," something like that.
Yes, yeah. Creepy stuff.
So that brings us to track 7, How the Mighty Have Fallen. Now this one, I love this one for its Motowny interlude on the record, but it's definitely not a favorite of mine. And I was interested, we were talking last night, I was interested to hear it was one of your favorites.
Yeah, it really is. It reminds me of an Elvis Costello song from his Mighty Like a Rose era. Mm-hmm. And look, I know that not everybody's the biggest Elvis Costello fan. I love his songwriting and I love his lyrics.
Yeah.
There's just something about the Say Goodbye to Hollywood beat, the dum 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 ra dum 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 dum. Yeah.
The night we met, I knew
You'd be my baby,
needed
right?
You so. Yeah.
How the mighty have fallen, like they do every time, and to me, you come crawling with your crown at your side. It's just a great picture.
Yeah.
Good image. You were high in your mountain. Now it's back to the farm. Kind of an allusion to Elton John. What song is that? Goodbye Yellow Brick Road.
Oh, yeah.
Bling, 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 bling,
Wow.
bling, bling, bling. How the mighty have fallen right back into my arms. I love this one. I think this is my favorite song on the record. And I know that that's not popular.
I mean, it's funny you mentioned Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. We'll talk about that one, plays into my notes on the next episode. But this one, I think it's her most beautiful singing on the record.
Yeah.
And again, those sweeping strings just kind of come in and save the day.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of country stuff is in a minor key and can run a little sad. With her songwriting, I think she very smartly uses a major key, and just in her chord progressions and things, there's an optimism even in the most, the grungiest places.
Yes, yeah, and I think that comes from her Midwestern nature. Mm-hmm. I can relate to that.
Sure.
Having grown up around that same sort of thing. You're not quite New York, you're not quite Nashville, you're not quite England, you're not quite California.
Yeah.
But man, the winters are cold. And you got nothing to do but to consume media and other things.
Yeah.
So I think that's why she draws on so many references. You really spend a lot of time indoors in that winter.
Yeah.
But
from there we move on to track number 8, Weekender.
It's amazing. Again, the instrumentation is unbelievable throughout this whole record. In that whole part where she goes, Caged Bird has to sing, the 2 drum beats, and it slings into the walking bass.
Ba-dum, dum.
It's really good.
Yeah, this one tells the story of when she got locked up after that drunk driving incident. It's, the turning point for her in her life and stuff like that, the wake-up call. But she uses it to great effect here, and there's a little, like, Johnny Cash on it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not just from the prison stuff, but just in the story quality, she's lived a life and she's telling us about it.
Definitely is.
Yeah.
Absolutely is.
The line that I love in this one is when she's describing her cellmate.
She said she beat her boyfriend up while high on crack cocaine. Now she sits and watches her young life go down the drain.
Oh my God.
It's great. There's a quote from Margo. She says, I felt like when I ended up in jail, that was God's answer. Now you are in the loony bin. And so I've kept a lot of that from my family. I don't know if my sister knows. They'll know when the album comes out. So she...
Yeah, definitely.
So she kept this kind of stuff private, mostly. And then she just put it all on the record. And we're reaping the benefits of that disclosure. This is another one that stood out for me on the first listen because you get the sense... Even if you don't know her story, you do kind of get the sense that she has lived this stuff. The lyrics feel lived in.
Yeah, absolutely true.
So yeah, I think that's about all I have on this one. It's just a really great song. Nice little country tune.
What more is there to say than that? It is. It's just, wow, 8 songs in a row, and they're all good.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go to a 9th song that's great. I mean, the next one must be a fan favorite, right?
Certainly for me, it was the single. It's the song I think of when I think about Margo Price. That would be track number 9, Hurtin On The Bottle. Another one of those kick-in-the-door tunes that'll, like, kick your ass into the bar and then back out again. There's just a lot of kicking going on.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a drinking anthem if I ever heard one, but again, one with pathos. There's that line.
Pathos.
Yeah. Been looking for a peek inside the valley, been searching for a key outside your door. I put a hurtin' on the bottle, baby, now I'm blind enough to see. Been drinking whiskey like it's water, but that don't touch the pain you put on me. What a line.
What a line. She's talking, you're never too old to learn to crawl.
Yeah.
I just think of that scene in The Wolf of Wall Street where he's dragging himself to the white Lamborghini. You know?
I forgot about that.
It's a really fun record.
Yeah, the end, it gets a little like gospel-y. There's like a little churchy feel right at the end of it. She's almost preaching to the altar of this lovable alcoholism.
Very clearly likes to drink, this girl. And almost all of these songs so far have had some kind of mention of it. But this one, she's just saying, I'm drinking whiskey like water. Okay, yeah, we know. Yeah. By now, we definitely know, lady.
Well, that brings me to a point we haven't really touched on yet. Is as a person who works in the music business, you can relate to this, I'm sure, is a lot of it is selling attitude and not necessarily even selling the music. It's selling your approach.
Yeah, it's what I'd say that's what life is about. You can't sell somebody something if you're not confident about it.
Sure.
And then in order for somebody to buy into something, you have to believe in your story.
Right.
And what are records for artists nowadays, especially, than business cards?
Sure.
Like, this is what I'm about. This is my story. When you come see me live, you'll get more of the same. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. It's all a show.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that because it comes back around to that time where Rolling Stone asked her, well, where's your record? She says, well, I don't have one. And so that was a great...
Yeah.
She learned that lesson, I think, the hard way, that the lesson you just described. But, you know, part of what she's selling in this is like, fuck you, I'll do what I want. And I don't have to listen to you, and I don't have to listen to anybody. I listen to people in my life, and you know what? I got screwed over, so fuck you. You said at the beginning, she's sticking her middle finger up at just about everybody here. And that's part of the attitude, and then the other side of the attitude is like, she makes no bones about drinking heavily and smoking a ton of weed, and to the point where... She became fast friends with Willie Nelson after this record came out and she got famous.
Makes sense.
He's got some kind of like weed business on the side. Like there's actually a strain of weed now in California that's named after Margo Price. It's like her personal strain of weed, which is currently sold out across the state.
Wow. Hey, Jay-Z was a drug dealer before he was a rapper. It all really is the same stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not even really joking about it because music is the shortcut to emotion. It's a rush for people. If you want to feel sad, put on a sad song. If you want to feel happy, put on a happy song. Well, what's the difference between that and a drug?
Yeah.
Almost nothing. Way less calories in music. You know,
That's true. That's true. I mean, we all turn to that stuff at one point. I mean, there's people who don't, I suppose, but you're turning to something, no matter who you are. Whether it's, if you're not drinking or smoking or anything like that, then you're turning to, like you said, music or some sort of media. I mean,
I don't know, man. You ever meet somebody who's just sober and they're so sober, they're like drunk on their sobriety, and they have and they're like real intense about it, and you're like, and usually you find out they were some kind of addict previously, and they've just replaced the addiction with something else, like a business or a
exercise,
a hobby, or who knows.
Yeah.
My point is, the people that don't do a little of this, I don't know if I trust them.
Well, yeah, they're like life vegans. They're like vegans for life. Freegans. Legans?
Yeah.
Nothing. I don't got any. Nope, that's all I got. I would beg our listeners out there, next time you're having a glass of whiskey, pop Hurtin' on the Bottle on while you're doing so. I guarantee you it's going to make that experience a lot better. And
much better, yeah.
You're going to be singing this damn song. I bought the 45 of this one because I went through a phase where I was like, I have to own everything this woman put out. And the flip of this is that song Desperate and Depressed we talked about, the one that got her the deal at Third Man. And what an A and a B. Hurtin' on the Bottle on the one side and then Desperate and Depressed on the other. Now, she sped Desperate and Depressed up for the tour. She made it into a more rocky song. But the one that appears on the B side is this, another one of these, like, don't think you can take advantage of me just because I'm desperate and depressed. Who hasn't felt desperate and depressed in their life? It's very relatable stuff.
Yeah, again, you haven't felt depressed? I don't know if I trust you. Do you know what life is made out of? In order to get something, you have to experience a little bit of pain.
Yeah.
Whether you're like, oh, I want to lose weight or I want to get a career, or you like risk. There's always the people that live in their little secluded suburban houses or whatever, and you're like, no risk. What's on Netflix? What's the next fucking thing I can put it in my eyes and ears?
This is the portion of the show where Ryan roasts you, the listener, personally.
Hey, whatever you do with your life is totally fine. I'm saying that people that have never ever been sad or are like, my life is so great. You're like, okay, cool.
You're talking about Mormons, right? You're just talking about describing Mormons.
I'm talking about everybody that's different than me. I don't like them. And I'm not. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. I haven't even had a bad weekend or anything. I don't know where this is coming from today.
You need a segment to spew your hate.
Maybe it'll change my sad boy into one of those like super sober, happy people. Oh, I've got a book for you. I wonder if I'm going to get fired from one of my jobs for this one.
I put hurting on the bottle. Baby, now I'm blind enough to see. Been drinking whiskey like it's water. That don't touch the pain you put on me.
Let's move on to the last track on the record, a short track called World's Greatest Loser. Another one that's not a favorite of mine, but another one that fascinatingly when you described as one of your favorites.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound like I have a learning disability or something, but simple songs, they're so powerful for me.
Yeah.
And this is just straight ahead. It's short. Mm-hmm. You know when you got a song that's around 2 minutes or under 2 minutes, it's just over so fast.
Yeah.
You have to play it again.
Sure.
That's what this is for me.
Yeah, it's a fragile, broken, little cracked portrait of a woman with nothing to lose except the person she loves.
The 3 verses end, if I lost you, I'd lose my mind. Then if I lost you, I'd lose my life. And then if I lost you, I'd lose it all.
Yeah.
There's an ascension. I mean, you lose your life, you lose everything, but that's the genius of what she does. She's saying, there's more than just to lose my life here by the end of the tune. And that's why I'm like, whoa, you're spinning through this whole album and it's a barn burner the whole way. And then this one stops you in your tracks. You know, this is like you got Randy Newman's on vinyl, the last record we did. I'm probably going to go buy this one.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's really good. It's one of my favorite records easily that I've heard in a long time.
I'm so happy to hear that. I knew it was well, I guess we can kind of stop it there because that brings us to the end of the record. And after this album was put out, she got a lot of heat on her. And I was very, like, I don't know, I've taken her career path very personally because I feel very invested in it. And I was so proud to see that she got the Best New Artist Grammy nomination. She didn't actually wind up winning the Grammy, but it wasn't Best New Country Artist. It wasn't Best Country Song. It was Best New Artist.
Right.
And I was so happy to see the establishment notice her and say, this is a person of value. Mm-hmm. I was bummed she didn't win it, but I was so proud that she got to do it because, like, I think it's really well earned and honestly gives me a lot of hope because she got famous at the age I am right now. And it was by sticking to her guns and it was by not giving up and it was about moving through adversity.
Right.
And her story I find to be, I mean, not at the risk of sounding corny, and I guess it is a little bit, but I find it kind of inspirational. Like, hey, she did it. Like, Stan Lee's another example. Like, that dude didn't create the Fantastic Four until he was 40. So, like...
I didn't know that. Wow.
There's always time to do this stuff. It's never too late to try and to keep at it, you know? And I think it's a good lesson, especially for creative people. Don't get discouraged. Like, keep at it.
So that was what I was trying to say in my rampage previously.
Yeah.
Just go and do something.
Do it.
Make something.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to. And I believe that everybody listening can do anything they want to do. Really. I sincerely.
This has been Ryan's Inspiration Corner.
Uh-oh. There's a devil, and then there's a shinier devil in a nicer suit on the other shoulder.
That's Margo Price, Midwest Farmer's Daughter.
Great album. I think this one was a wild podcast. I think we broke through something here. Yeah. I had a really nice time.
I did too, and thank you all for listening. We'll see you back next episode for a one that had to pierce my expectations, had to pierce my hang-ups, and I'm very excited to talk.
Here's a hint. You don't know what it's like being male, middle class, and white. Goodbye.
See you next time.
Do you have an opinion about the album we discussed today? Contact us at NowHearThisPodcast on Instagram, at NowHearThisPod on Twitter, facebook.com/NowHearThisPodcast, or email us at NowHearThisOfficial@gmail.com. See you next time.
Annabelle just unplugged all the clocks and everything. It'd take me an hour to reset all of them. It's fine. You're doing a great job. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the coffee. Thank you for marrying me. I don't think anybody else would have. Hey, Paul, how are you?
This is going to make a great blooper reel.